25 years ago, I was teaching philosophy at university, and I got involved in a United Nations project on global issues. I started thinking about global poverty, and especially its relation to the ecological problem. Now, economics and ecology share the same root, eco, our home. But the problem is that in order to alleviate poverty, in order to make a comfortable home for all of us, we must grow dramatically. And yet our current growth is already destroying our natural home, our environment. Now, the reason for this seems fairly straightforward. There are not enough natural resources to produce everything, to make everybody comfortable. And the solution also seems clear. We should consume less, we should produce less, and we should grow less. If we don't scale back, then at some point we are going to fall off an ecological cliff. And so we are stuck in a situation of scarcity. How do we get out of that? Well, I like to go on long walks to think. And one day on a hike in the woods, I was struck by the fact that there's nothing really scarce about nature. All around me, life was abundant. Everything was growing in all directions. Everything was multiplying. Everything was blossoming. And I felt this disconnect between abundant nature, life in full bloom, and my understanding of the world as fundamentally scarce. And over the next decades, as I started writing about this, I realized that while life is abundant, it is we who are stuck in a scarcity mindset. And this scarcity mindset makes us use the wrong strategies to deal with our global problems. Strategies which are not only ineffective, but actually damaging. And I became more and more convinced that we must make a shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. So, let me invite you on this quest to develop this abundance mindset. Now, first of all, what is a scarcity mindset? What is an abundance mindset? Well, a mindset is a mental model. It's a way of thinking about the world, but it's also a way of acting in the world. And it's a way of feeling about the world. And the mindset itself is invisible. It's like the joke about the fish asking, "Water? What's water?" Or think of it as a set of glasses. You're looking at the world through a set of glasses, but you don't realize that you're wearing them. And so it doesn't occur to you that you could take them off and put on a different set. So let's start with the scarcity mindset, because we're more familiar with it. The thinking is that there's not enough to go around. There is a fixed pie. This is all there is. And if I have more, you have less. And one behavior this leads to is competition. We're fighting over the same bit of pie. See how we're doing with the vaccines in this pandemic. It's country against country, group against group. And another behavior is accumulation. I want to get as much of this pie for myself and for the people that I care about. And look at our current consumption society. I think we've decided that life is a game called whoever dies with the most toys wins. And the feeling in this scarcity mindset is fear. The fear that there's not enough to go around. The fear that everything is going to run out. Now that's a pretty horrible feeling. And perhaps you've had that feeling in your life. You needed something, and there just wasn't enough to go around. And perhaps you've also had that feeling about our world in general. So what about the abundance mindset? Well, the thinking there is the idea of the surplus. We create so much more than we need in order to survive. And with this surplus, we've created civilizations. We've built in enormous amounts of goods. We've made life comfortable for billions of people. Surplus leads to growth and to progress. It's the idea of the flexible pie. We make the pie. We can make a bigger pie. We decide how big the pie is. And the behavior then is not competition, but collaboration. We are driven by curiosity and creativity to invent and make things all the time. And when we have all this creativity, we can share it. And the feeling is the feeling of plenty. I have so much more than I will ever need. So much more now, and so much more in the future. I don't have to accumulate just to feel safe. I can relax. So how do we make a shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset? Well, let's look at 3 examples. One where we've made the shift, one where we're in the process of making the shift, and some shifts we could make in the future. We've already made the shift with music. When I was a teenager, I had a small record collection, and I had to keep playing the same records. Now, of course, we have streaming services with 70 million songs. All the music that is out there is available to all of us. We've gone from a scarcity of music to an abundance of music. And strange things happen because of this abundance. When I grew up, if you had 100 times more money to spend on your record collection, you had 100 times as many records. And you had a pretty impressive collection. Now, if you have 100 times more money, you have access to the same music as everybody else, all of it, for the same fee. So abundance is the great leveler. And it also gives you that sense of trust and confidence in the future. I mean, are you seriously worried that you're going to run out of music to listen to in your lifetime? And imagine if you had that feeling that you have about music, about other aspects in your life. Because everything that is digital, everything that can be copied easily, is abundant. And when things are abundant, we can share them instead of competing for them. Now, in other areas, we're in the process of making the shift. Take the current pandemic. It's an amazing feat of creativity and production that we've been able to make these vaccines so quickly. But part of the scarcity of vaccines comes from our scarcity mindset. We hold on to the patents and the recipes. We stop other people from making the vaccines to create profit for a small group instead of value for all of us. In this case, our scarcity mindset is literally killing us. Because patents and recipes are ideas, and ideas can be shared freely. And we have done this before. The inventor of the polio vaccine didn't patent it, so all countries could use it. The car company that patented the seatbelt opened up the patent, so other cars companies could use it and save as many lives as possible. We're at a tipping point. We can tip back into hoarding and competing, or we can tip forward into sharing our creativity with all of humanity. Now, music and patents are mostly virtual, of course, so we can make endless copies easily. But how do we make the shift with physical objects? Well, we're actually pretty good at mass producing consumer goods. I mean, take the smartphone. It's a powerful pocket computer. Gives you access to all the abundance on the internet. And you can buy a new one for 70 euros. When I grew up, I could buy 3 records for that money. And as we're shifting our production to robots and software, we can make high-quality goods more and more cheaply. We can easily create and produce everything the world needs. And also, if you have access to all the music in the world, you don't need your own private collection. Imagine having the same type of access to other services, like different forms of transportation instead of your own car, to all forms of healthcare and education online. At some point, it doesn't make sense to accumulate more stuff. If you have access to anything that you want, whenever you want it, you have plenty. In an abundance mindset, we start from the idea of the surplus. We can create what we need to make a comfortable life for all. Music, vaccines, smartphones, and everything else. We can make the pie as large as we want to. But wait, what about the ecological problem then? The argument was that there are not enough natural resources to do this. We can't grow the pie because of the limits of the planet. Well, I agree, the situation is dramatic. Overfishing, global warming, species loss. And I'm really happy that there's so many young activists who are saying that this should be our first priority. But what if the diagnosis is correct, but the approach to the solution is the wrong one? I believe we have a much better chance if we approach it from an abundance mindset. And why do I think that? Well, nature is vulnerable. We can destroy it easily. Nature is vulnerable, but it is not scarce. Nature, in its essence, is abundant. And so the fundamental problem is not ecological scarcity. It is our destruction of natural abundance. And that's what we're doing. We're dragging nets over the ocean floor, destroying the capacity of fish to reproduce. We're depleting topsoil through intensive farming. We're burning down natural habitats for no good reason. It's immensely stupid. It's killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. Instead, why don't we treasure that golden goose? We can harvest the surplus of natural growth cycles without destroying the system itself. This is what we've done throughout our history with agriculture and animal husbandry. And as we understand these growth cycles even better, we can use faster growing growth cycles. For example, using insects for food. There are even more radical solutions. We can turn fast-growing nutrients into meat without using any animals at all. What about objects? Well, a stupid way of doing it is to dig a hole in the ground, to mine some natural resource, build an object with it, use it for a little while, and then dig another hole and bury it as trash. In nature, nothing is ever wasted because everything is reused as food for something else. So why don't we do that with our objects as well? That's the essence of the cradle-to-cradle approach and other forms of ecological circular thinking. If we reuse our natural resources, we can make as much stuff as we want. We can make as much stuff as we want if we keep reusing stuff all the time. The problem is not to produce less. The problem is to produce differently, radically differently. Okay, so with plenty of food and plenty of objects, there is one final problem. Where are we going to find the energy to power all this growth? Because we have caused global warming through our use of fossil fuels since the Industrial Revolution. And we're heading into catastrophic climate change. But we have an abundant source of energy, the sun. The sun is a star that is shooting out photons, light, into the universe. And a tiny part of these photons come on Earth. But that tiny part is 10,000 times our energy usage. 1 hour of sunlight can power our planet for a year. So it's definitely not a problem of scarcity. We don't have to go through coal and gas and oil for our power needs. We can use solar energy directly. We can develop even more efficient solar panels. Perhaps we can get solar energy directly through plants. And speaking of radical ideas, perhaps we can create our own sun here on Earth if we master the fusion process. We do need to shift away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible, but we never need to run out of clean energy. Now, in a scarcity mindset, the solution to the ecological problem is always less. Less production, less consumption, less growth. In an abundance mindset, the solution is plenty. The sun is an abundant source of energy. We can make plenty of food if we stop destroying natural growth cycles. We can make plenty of stuff if we keep reusing our stuff. It's not about producing less, but about producing differently. We can grow dramatically if we use natural abundance. Economics and ecology are not in opposition. They share the same abundant root. Life is abundant. And we can let go of this scarcity mindset. But I know that it's difficult to make the shift. The scarcity mindset is deep in our culture, it's in our history, it's even in our language. It's scary to give that up. And it also seems inappropriate and insensitive to say that life is abundant when so many people are so poor and when we're still destroying the planet. But imagine starting from an abundance mindset. Imagine this feeling of plenty that you have with music in other aspects of your life. We create a surplus, individually, communally, globally. We can grow the pie. We can have plenty now and in the future. Nature is a celebration of abundance. We are part of nature. We are part of that celebration. Thank you.